and then and just kind of see what happens from there. But there's not a good way to go about it, and it's really interesting to me because this puts Kansas City in a little bit of a hole from playmakers with losing Hunt and Hill for two very egregious offenses, essentially. So we'll see what happens next year. Obviously, they still have pretty decent a group of playmakers around them, but I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see what type of production they can get next year.
Well, I think the contrast between Hunt and Hill are two completely different worlds. One situation was a bad situation, but it was with someone never met before, and it was a drunk argument, and he has kind of mended his ways. The other one, you compared it to Adrian Peterson. I don't even think there's any comparison to that with what we've seen on the audio. Joining us now, beat writer for the Phildeaphia Eagles and official NFL contributor to The Balance, and you can find his work at footballmaven.com, Phildeaphia Eagles. Ed Kracz, how are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing good. Little busy weekend, baby. Going back down.
Busy weekend. We have Super Steelers fan Kyle Courtney on with us. We have Super Browns fan Adam Jividen on. And, Adam, I know you have kind of got a hard stop here, so we'll let you go ahead and give the final thoughts on Haskins to the Redskins, on the Browns. Any final thoughts that you have? Because I know you said that you've got a bamboozle, you got stuff going on. I appreciate you jumping on a little bit earlier with this, Adam. But what are your thoughts?
I think I love the position that Haskins landed in. Like I said, for me, pretty much I look for two things. I look for where do my Browns go, or who do my Browns get, who do the Colts get, where do my Buckeyes go. And every single group ended up in a great position. And so I'm pretty pumped. This has been a really, really good weekend. If only Bill Belichick would make like a really bad pick at some point, then at least I'd be a little bit happier about it. But no, I think I love the draft. I like making fun of Dave Gettleman because I think he's one of the worst GMs in the history of the league. So, he's giving me more fuel for the fire. So, it's good.
All right, buddy. You have yourself a good weekend, and we'll talk with you soon. Adam Jividen, Super Browns fan, joins us. Thanks, Adam. Have yourself a good day.
Bye. See you guys.
Always like talking with Adam. Kyle, you know Adam. He's just full of energy, and we like that. So, you were talking about Bill Belichick. I saw a meme that came out in the New England Patriots selecting their first round overall. There was an Asian lady giving a massage. So I don't know if that was too soon or not, but I thought that was hilarious. Let's we'll start with you, Kyle, super fan, and I know you come on board just to kind of give us the analysis from a fan's point of view. Ed is an official beat writer for the Phildeaphia Eagles, and he helps us with the media side of things and the analysis of all the teams. But let's start with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, we talked a little bit offline on draft night about some shaking and baking, and it appears you're not the only one. People like themselves with the Devin Bush and the trade that happened to make that happen. What are your thoughts about the Pittsburgh Steelers round 1 2019 draft?
Well, I mean, when looking at sort of the historical perspective here, the Steelers have really traded up twice prior to this weekend in the last 20 years. One was to select Santonio Holmes. One was to select Troy Polamalu, and obviously they used some of the picks that they had from Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown to solidify Devin Bush, which was a big hole in the middle of their defense after Shazier's unfortunate accident. So I think that this is the most excited that the fan base has been in a while when it comes to a first-round pick. Obviously, a lot of times the Steelers have been picking in the last 15 to 30, so you don't always have that really exciting playmaking guy that you think can come in and make an immediate impact. And Bush seems to be able to have a lot of the athletic skill sets. He was the captain of a very, very good Michigan defense and kind of was the quarterback on that side of the football. He is able to kind of run through traffic. He's incredibly athletic. He's big. He's strong. He's fast. He's not afraid of contact. And so I don't think a lot of people really thought we even had a shot at him. Everybody was just kind of waiting for, okay, fine, we're going to sit at 20, and we're going to get Greedy Williams or Byron Murphy or one of those other kind of corners. A lot of people felt that Cleveland Farrell would fall that far. Obviously, the Raiders liked him a lot more than a lot of people thought. But it was as excited as people were about the picks for 10. Feels like it's as unexcited as they've been for what the Steelers did yesterday, picking up the kid Johnson out of Toledo and the cornerback out of Michigan State, and both of those guys people felt were a little bit of a reach, but I think that for the most part I really don't discount the Steelers' ability to select wide receivers, especially because I guess the wide receivers coach said that Bruce Arians called him up immediately after they picked him and cussed him out because he wanted him really, really bad in the third round. So and the Bucs ended up trading back after that as a result. So I think that they've got a lot of talent. I still don't trust the Steelers selecting any type of cornerbacks because they haven't been able to really do that since Bryant McFadden and Ike Taylor in the early 2000s. So they've had a real issue of trying to selecting corners. But the rest of the week or the rest of the time through, they've really hit on their biggest needs moving forward. And so you're looking at tight ends, you're looking at running backs, you're looking at some edge depth, and just kind of filling in a few holes the rest of the roster. But they're in really good position now, and they have 6 more picks throughout the rest of the weekend. So I'm really excited to see what they do.
Ed Kracz, beat writer for the Phildeaphia Eagles, our official NFL contributor. You're listening to Super Steelers fan Kyle Courtney talking with us a little bit about the chicken and bake, about getting Bush. Talk with us a little bit about the Steelers in the post-Brown and post-Bell, or should we call it the post-Diva era. The Steelers have a way of every other year or every third year being there. As you listen to Kyle, he's just giving the fans perspective, but you live it. You're in the locker room every day. You even though you're with the Eagles, you understand the NFL at a higher level than most of us do. What are your thoughts about the Pittsburgh Steelers, and do they have their guy with Bush?
I think one thing, you have to keep in mind, and I think the Steelers do a good job of this. You draft these players, and they're college players, and now it becomes the responsibility of the coaching staffs to make them professional players and develop those players. So, you may be a little curious of the Steelers' second-round picks, Lane and a kid from Toledo, Johnson, but the Steelers do that pretty well. They are able to develop players. They typically have a good coaching staff that is able to teach these players how to become pros, how to fit into their system. On the surface, it looks like, hey, maybe it was a reach in the second round, but, I wouldn't discount what the Steelers are able to do with players. I know they've struggled to do that with cornerbacks, but now it becomes the charge of the assistant coaches to turn these guys into pros. And, Bush looks like, one of those guys that's a plug-in, ready-to-go guy, and the Steelers need to hope that he is, because that is a real hole, like Kyle said. I love the pick. I think, the key to him is he's able to get from sideline to sideline so fast, and he's a pretty good cover guy. So he'll fit really well, I think, into that Steelers scheme. So I like it. They had to move up to get him, but, again, I have no problem with that. I like being aggressive on draft day. I know the Steelers don't do it that often here in Philadelphia. Howie Roseman does it all the time. He moved up in the first round to get that offensive tackle, Andre Dillard, and that was his 27th draft weekend trade in the last 9 years. I mean, that guy's all over the board. So I have no problem at all with them being aggressive, as long as they felt like they made the right pick. And again, on the surface, it looks like it, but it comes down to the assistants now to kind of mold these guys into becoming professional players.
Well, I heard Clay Travis say this week, I know I reference him a lot, and Kyle, you guys know that I'm a big Clay Travis fan, but it is true. The number 10 slot is a very coveted slot. Maybe not as much as the number 1 slot, but the number 10 slot is a very coveted slot. And you see a lot of action around there, and it's not talked about except on draft day. But the number 10 slot is that. And they get their linebacker out of Michigan. This is player's going to replace Ryan Shazer. Kyle, real quickly before we go on to the Eagles here, Mike Tomlin has to get control of that locker room. I mean, last year was a total soap opera, total disaster, so many things going on, and didn't make the playoffs. Mike Tomlin has got to crack the whip and just say, hey, we're going to knock some heads together. We got to get control of our locker room, and let's stop acting like children on recess. If you're Mike Tomlin, if you're the coaching staff, if you're the leadership there with the Pittsburgh Steelers, knowing what you're going into, knowing that you didn't make the playoffs, knowing that you had just a total off-the-field diva drama in 2018, 2019 has to be a point of focus. You have to put the F back in focus. How does that happen, Kyle?
Well, I mean, honestly, I think in the Steelers have always been they haven't always been in rebuilding mode. They've always had a lot of veteran presence within the locker room. So instead of being kind of what you would consider the big disciplinarian that you have somebody like Bill Belichick, he's really going to lean on the captains of the team, the Cam Haywards, the Ben Roethlisbergers, probably set Juju down and Dante Moncrief and say, hey, we want to make sure that the wide receiver room is how it needs to be. Really lean on the position coaches to kind of set that standard. But I also think that in a lot of cases, when everybody in the locker room goes through that same exact situation and everybody doesn't want to go through that again, that's a huge motivator regardless of whether or not you have somebody being like, we're not going to do this again, trying to stand in front of the whole team and getting them motivated. I mean, this is the NFL. Like the people have to be pretty self-motivated. There's money on the line, there's jobs on the line. And so Tomlin is probably not going to make drastic changes within the locker room of how he's managed the team from year over year. But I think that there's definitely some addition by subtraction of not having some of those personalities in the locker room that made some of those issues or kind of exacerbated some of the problems that they were dealing with. But they still have. I mean, they still have a lot of really nice, humble guys. They have James Conner, T.J. Watt, Bud Dupree. A lot of these kind of bigger name guys, Joe Hayden, that can really step in and say, this is our culture, this is how we're setting it, and anybody that comes into our locker room, this is what it's going to be moving forward. And I think a team that has a singular focus, that has all the players that are at the top positions really focused in on what that goal is and driving that goal forward, it's going to allow Tomlin to do everything he needs to do without having to focus on all those single player personnel issues that he was having to deal with last year. So a lot of it is really going to fall on players in the organization to just kind of maintain the culture that they want and then allow them to get back to the way that they're used to playing and used to being.
And we're going to get into the Eagles here. I don't know if you have any final thoughts on the Steelers and Tomlin or anything that Kyle's talked about. We're going to get into the Eagles, and then we're going to kind of go through the picks, round one at least, try to get through as many as we can. I know we only had the clock is not our friend sometimes, so we'll try to get through as much as we can. We certainly want to talk about some of the top picks and some of the top storylines coming out of the first 2 days of the draft. But certainly you guys got your and full disclosure, it's up on our social media, it's up on our YouTube, it's up on our Twitter. And I know you were at the presser yesterday with the Eagles, and you were kind enough to send us some audio. I just couldn't get it loaded. I don't know how I couldn't get it converted. So that is my fault. I follow on the sword there, but. You guys get Andre Dillard, offensive tackle out of Washington State. I think it's a good pick. I mean, he's a good pass protector. He didn't have to put his hand on the ground. Eventually, he'll have to, I guess. But can he? Is he an A-plus guy? Do I give him an A? The Eagles an A? No, but I certainly give him a B or a B-minus, a B-plus. They're certainly in the B range, which is a passing grade for sure. So go ahead, Ed, any final thoughts on the Steelers, or go right on into the Phildeaphia Eagles and bring us up to speed over 2 days there at the Nova Center.
Yeah, the NovaCare complex. Yeah,
I'm sorry, NovaCare. My fault. Right.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah. Well, with Kyle here on the line, I mean, I think it's a big year for Mike Tomlin. I know the Steelers have that stability in the head coaching ranks, but frankly, the Steelers were a bit of a league-wide embarrassment last year with the kind of shenanigans that went on, and having missed the playoffs for the first time, I think, in 6 years or 5 years, it's a big year for him. It's a big year for Roethlisberger. You know, there's a lot of fingers pointed at him as, you know, one of